a good amount of Americana stuff.
Yeah, sure.
I think because I really wanted to go for a pop rock album. It's like we definitely accomplished
it totally is.
It's like I grew up with pop and I've got that rock gene in me, so it's perfect little.
Well, it showed a side of you that I don't think I had seen before.
Well, I think that's that was my whole thing. It's like people only know me as like the TV guy. It's
yeah. All right, so here we go. Mics are hot. Zac Pitts here on your Tuesday afternoon alternative with the first single from his forthcoming album, Midwest Romance. That's Let Go. You're listening to YTAA, as we call it for short, hashtag, on WUDR Dayton, Flyer Radio. Rocking the Gem City, music in all direction. Support your local music scene. And we believe in that support. Zac Pitts is here in the studio. We're going to talk about his forthcoming album and, quite frankly, anything else he wants to talk about. Zac, thank you so much.
Thank you for not only having me on the show today, for what you do in general. So many great local musicians, artists, and bands have passed through this area, and I'm so excited to finally be sitting in this chair.
Talking about your music.
I'm super excited about it. So thank you for what you do, and thank you for the opportunity.
Well, you're too kind. You're too kind. It's really easy to be a music fan in Dayton.
Mm-hmm.
Right, there's so much great music.
There's so much great music. There's so many great people, and when you have great music and the people that make that music are just fun to talk to and fun to get to know, it makes it easy being a part of the music community.
Well, we need to talk about that. You have made a record. You worked with Patrick Himes at Real Love Studio. You've got Amber Hargett on at least one song, and I think more?
No, it's just Amber Hargett, and then the other person is Sam King.
Oh, who is phenomenal.
She's incredible.
Oh, good grief almighty. So we got to start at the beginning. So you were born in that... No, I'm kidding.
A long time ago.
That's right. It feels like the start of Star Wars, right? The script is slowly rolling up the screen.
It'll last for like 3 seconds.
Yeah, right? For me. So, okay, I knew many things about you. I know you're involved in video production. Of course, you're involved in a number of things with television. I know you're involved with branding and networking and helping musicians and other creatives kind of work in that area. I did not know as clearly until that song, Let Go, came out that you were also a musician.
And most people don't. Most people didn't. And I think that's why I was very not only excited, but also very hesitant at the same time, because, it's when you, going back to the whole marketing and branding thing, when you are branded as this person, like a lot of people just know me, hey, you're the TV guy, you did Living Dayton, you did, the morning news, or you do the morning news, who are you to think that, you could do this too? And again, being associated with Sound Valley, the whole idea with that was taking what we knew about marketing and branding and helping local bands and artists do their thing. So there was a couple different things that were going on here. I also felt like, who am I to tell you how to do something if you're like, well, you don't even have an album, you don't have a record, like, who are you to do this? And it's like, well, I've been busy with half a dozen other things. So, when I finally locked myself in the studio with Patrick Himes, worked on this thing for a little over 3.5 years, I knew that I really needed to have a marketing plan, something strategic that would get this in front of as many people as possible. What I really want to do through this process is share this with other people, other bands and artists. Like, this is how I did this. This is how I ran ads. This is how I did this. So it's kind of a multifaceted thing where I'm excited to share the music with people that will enjoy the genre in itself and people who will have fun with it, but also use it as my template to say, like, hey, this is how I did it. You can do it too. These are the steps 1 through 5.
And you cannot beat that authenticity, right? That fact that you did it yourself.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to the actual recording, I can't thank Patrick Himes at Real Love Recording Studio enough for taking the sound that I had in my head for many, many years and helping me really extract that and pushing me to be the best I could possibly be. but you know, this has been a lifelong goal of mine. This has been something I've wanted to do since I was a little kid, and you know, for many reasons, you're told, you know, that's not a real thing. You can't do that. And you know, the last few years they've been kind of tough. You know, I've had some things go on, but you know, just kind of staying focused on this is what I ultimately want to do. This is what, you know, 8-year-old Zac has always wanted, and really reconnecting with that part of yourself. Like, and I think that's the key. I think that as you get older, things become harder because you get a little bit more, you know, the world kind of infiltrates your mind a little bit. But once you reconnect with that childhood part of yourself, where it's like, this is what I've always wanted. This makes life more fun when you act like that person. When you're a kid.
Well, and the joy, or just the energy or enthusiasm to just go for it and not second guess yourself or not hold yourself back. I mean, that I think that's exactly what you're talking about. What was it about music that spoke to 8-year-old Zac? What band or song, or what was it that sparked that interest?
Okay, so this is a true story. So I'm the oldest. There's 3 of us, 3 brothers. And I remember, this is going to be pretty embarrassing here.
Oh, okay. I should make sure. Yeah, all the recordings on. You're good. You're good.
Recordings on, volume's pumped up. So, you know, I was born in '89. So, you know, during the '90s, right? Remember when Hanson was a thing?
I do.
And so there's, you know, I'm the oldest of, you know, there's 3 of us.
3 brothers. Yeah.
And so I was like, those are 3 brothers. They're making music. Chicks are liking them. Like, we could do that too, guys.
Yeah.
Now, needless to say, or, you know, as you can see, I was the only one that really was like, okay, I'm going to do this thing.
Yeah.
But I think that's where it started, was like, you know, I've always been close with my siblings, and I said, you know, we could do this thing. And I always just had a natural attraction to music. And you know, I remember when I wanted a guitar, and how dead set I was. And again, going back to when you're a kid and you want something, you get it. And you know, without sounding like a spoiled brat, but like when you focus on what you really, really want, it just naturally comes your way. And so I think that was where it started, was that like, okay, they're doing it, why can't we do that too? It kind of grew from there. And you know, I've always been a sucker for earworms. You know, I've always loved pop music. My first concert actually was Backstreet Boys. You know, like
okay.
I love earworms. And then you know, I grew up, and like, you know, okay, when that wasn't cool anymore, it's like, and then you know, went the whole Blink 182 route and started getting into the more pop punk sort of deal, and it just kind of, as it does with anybody, it just evolves. And you know, like with this particular album, like you can definitely hear like some of those pop punk, pop rock, you know, influences, but like with the synths and all that, like I found myself really loving the sound of like 80s style synths and stuff like that. And again, working with Patrick Himes, he knew how to accomplish that sound that I heard that hadn't quite been done, like, you know, a little variation of it. And you know, I couldn't be more excited and proud of how it turned out.
Well, the album sounds like a rock pop album, and I mean that as a compliment. I mean that as,
just go ahead and say that again, because that's exactly what I was going for.
Well, yeah, hit it.
Yes.
You hit it. Well, I mean, and I know we were talking off air about this. People don't make that kind of album anymore, and not to say that. And I'm sure as I reflect, I'm going to think, well, what about Dolph Chaney? What about, you know, all kinds of folks who work in pop or rock? This album would have been very welcome in the 80s. It has not a nostalgic component, but a sound that I think is reminiscent, right? Your influences are there, but you're moving beyond your influences.
And that's, I guess when people started hearing it and saying that, it told me like, okay, you accomplished what you wanted, but more.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is like, yes, I knew where I wanted to go with it, but it also told me like, okay, this isn't cookie cutter. Right. It told me that it wasn't, and again, that's some of my own insecurity, like, you know, having friends and playing with other people, you know, some music, and hearing like, oh, that sounds generic. That sounds just like this. And I didn't want that. I didn't want something that sounded like, you'd heard it before. There's something familiar about it, but it was also like, okay, there's something different, and that's what's like making me say like, okay, I'll give that another listen. And so I'm really excited about that, and I think a huge part of that, obviously we talked about the synths and just some of the influences, but using real instruments and not using amp sims and guitar plugins and or real drums. This was something I was very hesitant as well, but like, not tuning the vocals. And again, like it's a stylistic thing, obviously, but that was something that Patrick was very huge on. And there was a time where I was kind of dead set on saying like, okay, I think we're going to record these vocals. Maybe I'll send them out to go get them tuned and do all the things to them, right?
Right.
And it was actually, I was talking to Amber Hargett at some show at Yellow Cab, and she said, hey, I hope you're okay with this, but Patrick showed me one of your songs when I was in the studio with him the other day, and he mentioned that you really wanted to go get them tuned somewhere, or and get them worked on. And I said, and she's like, here's the deal. He told me this, and I want to tell you this as well. You call it a record for a reason. It's recording a moment in time in your life, and so you can look back on it later on and say, I grew from this. You can look back at it and say, look where I've gone, look where I've been, look where I'm going. And that really just resonated with me on that evening. And I said, you're right, because I've just been very fascinated and very focused on personal growth over the last few years. And it's like, okay, this is my moment in time where I can say this is where I was when I recorded my very first album. Look how much I grew, look where I've been, and I'm excited where I could go from here.
Well, you raise a number of important points there. Just because the tools are there doesn't mean you have to use them.
And that's so true. And I think that, it's kind of become a standard in some ways, like if you turn on the radio, and I'm not going to by any means mention any artist in particular, but like, you hear something and you're like, I've heard this before, and, those vocals are so over-tuned, like you can just all you have to do is say words and you and push a button and you've got a melody. And I don't know, like I guess there's something about like having the producer in your ear say like, sing that again, sing it over, because what happens is you can't, when you have that character that came out of that moment, you can't recreate that. You can snap everything to a grid and push a button that makes everything in tune, and it may sound pleasing to the ear because everything's perfect in tuning and key, but like that scratch in your voice that you can't recreate. And there's those little moments on here where I'm like, I couldn't do that if I tried. I couldn't do that over again if I tried. And that's really cool. And when you look at it from that perspective and through that lens, it makes it special. It makes it say, this was a process, and that's what it's all about.
Well, there's that texture, that tenor, that feeling that you can smooth it out, you can adjust the frequency, but you lose something human in the process. You lose something, I think, something real, something authentic when you do that. I've been listening to a number of records I listened to when I was younger that have been remixed or remastered, and I think the challenge for me is the remixing, where they've used some of those tools to correct the vocal or to correct, well, this part was a little off key. Now we're going to make it so it's not off key. And and again, like you, I'm not going to mention any names or albums by name. And I'm like, why does this feel off? Why does this feel wrong to me? Why does it feel false? And I realized I went back and looked at, okay, what am I actually listening to? Oh, this is the remixed version of this album, and it looks to me like it's been remixed a couple of times by the time this hit a streaming service. And then I went to my music room, put on the vinyl record, and I'm like, oh no, this is what I wanted to hear.
And that's the other thing, like I ordered vinyl, and man, that process, they're not going to be here for a while, so all the people who ordered one,
it's coming.
I don't know when, but I did get the confirmation a little while ago. But yeah, like I knew that I wanted that because I wanted that sound of it feeling alive. And, and it does. Like when I listen to it, even on a streaming platform, like it sounds alive. And I listen to some of my favorite bands, like just I'm at the gym today, and it's just like, this is great, like this is cool, but like I can hear how it sounds copy and pasted. And and don't get me wrong, I was going down that avenue because it's easy, and I'm a kind of a naturally of a perfectionist. And it's kind of a double-edged sword where you want things to be great, but who wants to be vanilla? And life's a crazy thing. You just grow up and learn things as you go, and you're like, I don't want that.
It's sort of like becoming not so much comfortable with yourself or your flaws, limitations, or capabilities for that matter, but just recognizing. My dad used to say good enough. That it may not be perfect, but it was solid, it performed its function, it looked good. You could tweak it for days or hours on end. And of course, he was doing construction and things like that, where things needed to be plumb and level and all that. But I asked him one time, well, does this have to be perfect? Because the joint isn't quite, it's only half of the joint is perfect. And he's like, it's not going to matter. At the end, all the other things around this are going to hide the fact that we are less than 1/32 of an inch off one half of one corner, right? I could spend days getting it right, or we could move on.
And it's so funny that you said that. I don't know if it was today or if it was yesterday, but I kind of just adopted that belief that good enough is better than perfect, because you'll agonize over something forever and ever and ever. And there was a part where making this record, I may have started doing that, but then I had to stop and say, there's 10 other songs we got to get to.
Right.
And in its entirety, it's great. Just like you said, there's so much around it. And, that's how you get to the next thing. That's how you make progress in life. Like we're never going to be perfect. And I think that once you kind of come to that understanding, that like it makes life so much more enjoyable, because you're not hanging on the things that are, you try to be perfect is holding you back. Absolutely.
Excuse me. Oh, you're a good interview.
So that was it. You're like, okay, yeah, that's a good place to go.
Well, I'm not going to get any better. I'm not going to get any better than that as a segue. Because I think, what is the phrase? I'm never going to get it. That the perfect is the enemy of completed. I'm paraphrasing. I'm nowhere near right, but I do think that perfectionism can become a problem, at least in a project like you're talking about, right? I suppose if I'm thinking about the medicine I take when I'm sick, or the injections I get for flu or COVID or whatever, right? At that point, I want a high level of perfection, right? But when I'm looking at a piece of art, when I'm listening to, musical art, when I'm looking at sculpture, I want that human element, right? I want to see that human creative spark represented in some way. Perfect, right? I can make a perfect square. That doesn't make it interesting.
And this is probably the perfect song that you could have picked after that.
Oh, is it?
After that segue, you picked the perfect song.
Oh dear Lord, that'll never happen again.
Yeah. Man, you're 2 for 2 today. I don't know what number one
I should go buy a lottery ticket. Now, if you told me you found a space on the street, then I would totally go buy a lottery ticket, because that's 3 impossibilities.
Yeah.
So at that point, I'm going to be like, okay, is this flaw in the Matrix?
There's a glitch. There's a glitch somewhere.
Is there a cat running around out there?
There's 2 of them.
Oh, God.
I tell you what, going back and rewatching that movie is so fun and so ahead of its time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I still every so often. Oh, excuse me. I was just overcome. No, I'm kidding. I think that it still holds up really well, and especially the first film.
The first one, I get a little lost in the second and third. It's just a little too.
Yeah.
It's not that they're
bad. A little.
Yeah.
It's just for my taste.
But when you watch the first one, you're like, I see what again, as you get older, you're like, okay.
Yeah.
But there are times where you do feel like you're like, none of this matters. None of this matters. And, you know, and I think that it did a really good job of saying that in a way that people can watch it, probably still, it goes over their heads.
I'll let it run into the next song, too.
Yeah, that works for me. That works for me. So, yeah, no, I think it's a great movie.
I remember not knowing much about it.
Right.
And going to see it in the theater. I don't do that very often, but I try to when I can. And now it's harder than it was, you know. Although that's, over a decade old. I mean, and it's like to go to a film and you're not sure what it's about. Right? Obviously, I might make sure, okay, I don't want to find myself in an adult film here. That's not the theater experience I'm looking for.
But I figured it out. I was 10 minutes into it.
At that point, it'd be, oh, look at the time, I have to be leaving. But it was so interesting to see it and like go, oh my God, I had no idea. This is cool.
So good.
But yeah, I think it's an extraordinary film.
I love this one, dude. This turned out perfect. Well, I mean, going back to literally, I'm so excited that this thing's done.
Oh well, I mean,
so
it's awesome. I mean, I could see you playing with so many bands out there. I mean, there are elements like I hear elements of Weezer in some of this.
Yeah.
I hear Green Day in some of this. I just hear good rock and roll. Right? I mean,
I appreciate that.
I think of weird ass bands like Loverboy, Eddie Money, and stuff that okay. It's not going to win a Nobel Prize, but you're gonna shake your fist or nod your head or stamp your feet to it.
Yeah.
And there's no shame in that. Not everything has to be a moral, diatribe.
And that's the thing. Like, it's kind of like I feel getting through this. Now, I need to take a break from ever doing that again because man, making a record is the most.
That had to be tough.
Financially, one, but two. Emotionally, because like the thing is,
we love you, Ashley. Thank you.
yeah. But the thing is, like what I would do is I would go to work, wake up at 2 a.m., go do the morning news, leave there around 9:30.
Right.
Either get something to eat or go straight to the gym. Be at Patrick's studio by 11, and then be there until 7 o'clock and go home, and then go to bed and do it all again. Like, so usually I have to be in bed by 7:30.
Right.
So literally, and I did that. There was one stretch where I did that for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And man, I was.
That has to burn you out.
Oh, I was.
Well, and you are married. It's nice to spend some time with your talented and lovely wife. But a schedule like that's just punishing.
Yeah.
That's just punishing.
It was a lot. But
I mean, look at what you accomplished here, though. It's a phenomenal record.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Because again, I'm always out there looking for like the rock record I can put on, and it just gets you pumped, gets you going. Mm-hmm. And like this song in particular, and a couple others. Even the one we just played, it just gets you going, and there's no shame in that. There are a lot of times I'm listening to things that have certain themes or lyrical qualities to it, and they're but all of this can coexist. Mm-hmm. But then again, I say that it's like I have not had the time to do the deep dive and listen closely to the lyrics. So you might be saying, "Dude, there's more there than you think."
Well, that's the other thing. Like lyrics are pretty important to me, just because. Like, I'm not the greatest vocalist by any means, and again, that's something I'm very self-conscious about.
Sure.
And the thing is, that's why, with the things I've kind of released, if you get the vinyl, it comes with a lyric book. If you get if you order the CD online, it comes with this backstage pass thing that talks about what the songs are about and goes through the lyrics. Because that's what's important to me. I want you to be able to sing along, bob your head, do all those things, but I also want you to say oh. This is a side.
There's something's going on here,
There's something going on in his brain.
Well, thank you for loving the Loverboy reference, Shelley.
Shelley Holtz.
Zac Pitts here on your Tuesday afternoon alternative. Caught in the Moment was from his soon-to-be-released forthcoming, however you want to say it, Midwest Romance record. I believe the release is this Saturday at Yellow Cab.
The release show, it's available on all streaming platforms now. You can actually get a free copy of a CD and some merch. If you go to zacpitts.com/free merch, you can get a copy there too. But it's all on streaming platforms, whatever your preferred one is. But the show is going to be Saturday at Yellow Cab Tavern. Super excited about it. It's the first time I played live in 6, 7 years, something like that.
A while.
It's been a minute. But I'm super excited about that, and just excited for people to, I know we talked about this, off air, but see a side of me that that people just don't quite know and weren't aware of,
You're listening to your Tuesday afternoon alternative here on WUDR Dayton. Rocking the Gem City and support your local music scene. We're here with Zac Pitts, whose album is now available pretty much everywhere. The release show, as he said, is at the Yellow Cab Tavern this weekend. So how does music creation work for you, right? I know we talked off air about a very punishing schedule that you had to keep, but how do the ideas come to you? How do you work on them?
Every song on this album is completely different in obviously what they're about, but also how they came to be. For a song like Let Go, that one kind of really dives into, I was going through a really bad bout with anxiety and some depression, and that it all kind of came out in that song. But that song in particular maybe was 6-7 months in the making lyrically.
Really?
Where every now and again, I'd just kind of step away from my desk and just a line would pop in my head and I'd write it down. And it just kind of over time in my little notes, in the notes app on my phone would grow. But like a song like Civil War, there was just a moment where I just kind of had a thought. I was thinking about a particular instance, and it came out in less than 20 minutes, the whole song, literally.
Really?
And so I remember sitting there and kind of cranked out something in 20 minutes, and I text Brian Hoflick, who was the studio drummer. I said, hey, are you available on Wednesday? I have studio time. I have a song. So literally it came together that fast. And that's what I think is really cool about songs. It's your connection to infinite intelligence, and you are an antenna, and somewhere it just kind of hits you, and it's done like that. Whereas something, it's kind of like a little bit of marble that you have to chip away at it a little bit to get what you have in your head out into a tangible physical form.
So is it fair to say some songs come quickly, some you labor over?
Yeah, most definitely. And just kind of looking at just what you have on your screen, some of the songs, the list there. Clarity. That was I went through this phase where I bought a loop station, a loop pedal. I was going through this Ed Sheeran phase, and I was like, "This is the coolest thing ever!" And I just kind of came up with just a chord progression that looped over and over again. I started layering what would be a drum sound, and I wrote the whole song through a single loop, and and I was able to do that. Forever and More, that's what I call my sappy mom song. I was listening to, again, I was going through that Ed Sheeran phase, and there was a song that came on shuffle on my way home, a super sad song that he has, and it got me thinking about my mom, and I was like, I have this idea, and literally I was on my way home from work, and went straight to my office as soon as I got home, and recorded something on my phone and wrote the song right there. But like I mentioned, Let Go, that took forever to get that out, and some come super quick, some come need a little extra time, and but every song on this album was created in a different way, where the lyrics came first, or maybe the music came first, or maybe I don't know. They're all different, and that's what I like about it.
How do you capture the idea? You mentioned your phone. Are you making demos at home?
So that's something that I really want to get back into, and this kind of re-inspired me to get back into it. There's a few songs like Current. I remember when I first discovered GarageBand on my laptop, I'm like, okay, I have an idea, and that song came fairly quickly. Want You More. That was one of the first songs that I wrote when I moved back to Dayton, and again, just started playing around with GarageBand, and you know, he had that one little lick that kicks off the album, the dun 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 dun, and I was like, that's a lot of fun. And the whole song was based off that one riff. So everything just kind of snowballs from one little spark, and you know, you end up with a full song that you hope other people will like and connect with.
Well, and for me, on several of the songs, they feel freeing. They I don't know if joy is the right word, but there's energy, there's excitement, there's enthusiasm around it, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not going to call Forever and More like a happy, joyous song, but I do think something like, gosh, Want You More is just I call it a lovely rocker.
Yeah.
Right?
It's the banger, as I call it.
Same thing.
Yeah, yeah. And it is. It's fun. It's, you know, like it's the whole album in its entirety tells a story. It's supposed to be the push and pull of a relationship. And like there are fun times, there are happy times, there are times like that make you just want to shake your hips and dance, and there are times where they're a little darker. But you know, I think that, you know, just that's what I was trying to go for, was that push and pull roller coaster of what a relationship feels like. Sometimes it makes you want to dance. Sometimes it just makes you just want to sit in a corner and be really upset.
Because that would have to be fun to play.
Oh, that one?
Yeah. And then,
It is. Yeah. That's actually what it started with, was that lick. I think on the album release show, there's gonna be at least two songs where it's like I told Patrick and you know the guys that are playing, like, listen guys, like I'm gonna rock on this one. I don't want to play guitar.
Yeah.
You guys gotta play this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going handheld and I'm working that crap. It's happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this almost feels like a Story Changes song to me.
This one?
Yeah, this one in particular, and it just has an immediacy to it. It's kind of impact. Right, and maybe some of the chord changes are reminding me of Story Changes too, which I think is phenomenal. But Mark and Poppy have been kind of busy with Hawthorne Heights, but that's really interesting to me. That so there is a theme. I did not pick up. That is something I did not pick up on.
Well, I mean, it obviously loosely based, but like I wanted it to make sense. That's kind of how I stacked the songs in the order that I did.
Yeah.
Just, you know, there and I kind of tried to tell the story like, you know, though I don't think I've ever said like, okay, this is when I did this. This is when I did this. But
okay, so it's not quite so like narratively focused.
Yeah.
Story focused.
And you know, like the way I layered them, like, you know, whether they were written at a particular time, like there's a reason that I have, which I've never really said. You know, I kind of want the listener to figure it out, maybe. But there's a reason that Caught in the Moment is right before Civil War.
Okay.
And, you know, there's, though, like, you know, you would have to actually have lived through that experience with me to maybe know, or maybe I've had to tell you the story. But there's a reason that certain songs are before some, so.
Well, and that must have take a fair amount of time on your part. Go like, okay, well, this song needs to flow into the next because, right?
Yeah.
Or yeah, trying to think. Want You More does open the record, right?
Yeah.
And then Till Death closes the record.
Correct. Yeah.
So there is a kind of arc.
That's
yeah.
You are listening
That's
to WU.
totally what I was going for.
So I can see that. I can totally see that. This one, I think, is one of the songs that has more atmosphere in the beginning.
Yeah. And this is like the one I said that it came together in 20-25 minutes.
This one came fast.
And I'm really excited about this one, like, because it does something completely different. I'm a huge fan of the anti-chorus.
Okay.
I'm a huge fan of an anti-chorus, and you know, obviously it starts off like all like, you know, atmospheric, as you mentioned, a little slower and whatever. But you think it's gonna blow up? and what I like about it, it's
hey man,
it's that pop. I was trying to go for that pop stuff, where it just feels a little bit more dancey.
Well, and that's like the equivalent of like the jump scene you're expecting in the movie that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And it's gonna happen like two or three scenes later.
Yeah.
When you think you're safe, or
That's totally.
or who is it? Who's the filmmaker who will do horror? He or she, I totally forget, will do like back to back. So you're like, this happened, this happened, something else happened, like, and they happen so closely together, like you never get a chance to catch your breath.
Yeah.
I want to say it's an Asian horror filmmaker, because I gotta say some of the most interesting things in horror these days being done in like Korean cinema.
So did you ever watch it? So this is gonna sound stupid.
Oh, there are no stupid.
People give me like, I hate. It's not that I don't want to. I hate reading subtitles. Like I want to watch a movie. I don't want to read a movie.
I feel you on that.
And like and people are like, that's so ignorant of you. Like that's not what I mean. Like, but
right.
I
You
can't
feel pulled out of the movie because you're reading the subtitles.
correct. And like so, Parasite I've heard was a great movie.
I enjoyed it.
But see, I couldn't watch because I'm like, I can't. I'm not going to enjoy this because I'm reading the entire movie, and it's.
Yeah, there are a few Korean and I'm not sure if they're Chinese, called Asian cinema. So it's obviously came from somewhere. And I don't know. I balance it, but there can't be too much dialogue.
Yeah.
If there's a lot of dialogue, then I'm just pulled out of the movie.
Well, like when you're talking about subtitle dialogue.
Yeah.
So like another thing, like I love Quentin Tarantino movies. I love. It's great, and that's what his strength is the dialogue and scenes.
Yes.
And so
if you have to read it.
So when Inglourious Bastards came out, like I want to love it, but I can't because I'm reading the entire time, and it's just like it's too much. It's too much for me.
Well, it's funny because the first time I saw that movie, and he does three like this. I'm like, oh God. That's an American thing, right? You do this in Europe and in Germany.
Oh, I didn't know that.
This is three. This shows how American you are.
Oh, I didn't
And
know
I
that.
saw that coming. I'm like, oh, we're about to have a gun. Yeah, we'll let it do one more. We're about to have a gunfight.
That's too fun.
Because it's like I totally tensed up in my scene, and my wife is like, tensed up in the scene in the chair, like so much she noticed that I tensed up, and I'm like, shit's gonna happen.
It's about to go down.
And then Tarantino doesn't just have like a gun go off.
Yeah.
He has like 100 guns go off.
Yeah.
But I like